You never receive it.
No, I just, I like them.
Yes, I did. Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Nabiya wa Mursaleen Nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd. I don't remember where we left off last time, so you guys are going to have to remind me. But what we'll do is we'll talk about those who are exempted from fasting, just as a quick review and summary of what we discussed last week. We said the first group are the people who need to make up their fasts. So who are these people who need to make up their fasts? Okay, so a woman who's pregnant, good. Okay, a woman who who's on her cycle, right? And she misses days because of that. Good. Who else? A woman who's breastfeeding, good. That's it. Travelers, good. I'm sorry. Those who have a temporary illness, good. So all of these people are the ones who have to make up the fast at a later date. So temporarily, we said the one who's ill and the one who's a traveler. And what did we say? What kind of illness excuses me from fasting? Like a headache, paper cut, you know, right? Basically, if I fasted, it would make my situation worse, right? It would make my situation worse. So that's the thing that we had said. The traveler actually, the traveler, just like the one who's ill, they both have what? All of these people essentially, except the one who's menstruating or on postpartum bleeding. All of these people are this and this, not this. These two people, what is unique about them? Out of all of them, like versus this woman here. So we have temporary, sorry, it's not that clear, right?
No.
Right. So basically you have the people who need to make it up for temporary reasons, whether it be a traveler, a person who's sick, or a woman who's pregnant or breastfeeding. We said these two people are different than the woman who is on her cycle. I'm sorry? No. These people just have to make it up if they miss their fast.
Seems like choice.
They have a choice.
Yeah.
So even if I'm ill and I know that my fast will get worse, can I still fast?
Yes.
Yes, I can. If I'm traveling, can I still fast? Absolutely. Right. That's the only thing that's different. The woman who's on her period or the woman who's on her cycle, can she fast?
No.
Even if she wanted to, she can't. Right. It is actually haram. It is impermissible for her to fast during that time. And even if she fasts, what does she have to do? She still has to make it up. Right. She still has to make it up. The one who has to pay, we said these people have a permanent disability. They have a permanent disability, whether it be due to age or whether it be due to illness. These people, they can actually pay upfront, meaning once the month of Ramadan starts, they can pay for the entire month. And what does this person have to pay? So for every day, right? For every day, one meal for every day or 2 meals for every day. Right? No, it's one. It's one meal for. Yeah. So it's one meal for every day. And that meal is the meal that they actually break their fast on. So if I give can I give 30 dates? Like one date for every person, be like, alhamdulillah, I have fulfilled my fasting obligation. So it's an issue that there's khilaf. So I think in the madhāhib, it actually has to be like one handful. And one handful is enough. That is considered an actual meal. A loaf of bread could be enough. And a lot of this stuff is like culturally dictated too. It's not something that is, there's no like hard and fast rule. It just has to be a meal, right? Something. And a meal in general is something that normally a person would be filled by. If for any other reason I break my fast, I have to make it up. So for example, if a person chooses not to fast, and I'll give some cases where that applies. Chooses not to fast. No. None of these exceptions apply. None of them. Healthy, sound, everything. Ramadan comes. I don't feel like fasting today.
That's simple.
This is sin, there's no doubt. But what does he have to do? So the question is, right? So if any reason I decide not to fast, Ramadan comes. It's like the 5th of Ramadan. It's like, oh man, I think I hit 4 fasts in a row. I don't feel like fasting. I don't feel like fasting.
Okay.
I was kind of partial to take shahada.
Take his shahada because he left Islam. Okay. No,
I'm serious.
he did not leave Islam.
Okay.
He would leave Islam at what point?
No, if you are against the obligation.
If he denied the obligation of Ramadan, he's like, if he was like, everybody's like, okay, he's like, nah, there are only 4 pillars, dude. Fasting, shahada, praying, zakat, and hajj. It's like, okay, what about Ramadan? No, Ramadan's not a pillar. Right? So that denial is enough to say that the person would be outside the fold of Islam. But not performing an act or not performing an obligation is it's a sin, right? And if the person chooses not to fast, what is he obligated to do now?
To be covered, to pray,
Right. So most scholars will say he just has to make it up. He actually doesn't have to pay the kafara.
What about the free? There is a
That's for a specific situation, which we'll talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where can this apply? I got a question one time saying that, Sheikh, my daughter never fasted before and she just had her period. She never fasted before and she just had her period. What should she do?
The first period.
This is her first period. Like before Ramadan started, like a few days before Ramadan started, she had her first period. And she got clean. Ramadan started. What does she do? She should know. She starts fasting. Like, what if she's not able to? She makes it up later.
She starts after.
So like, let's say, like, so let's say like 2 weeks before Ramadan starts, the girl has her period. She gets clean, and then Ramadan starts. What is she obligated to do? She's obligated to fast, right? The obligation has started upon her because she's now an adult. So now that she's an adult and she started fasting, what if she can't fast?
She can.
Like she just doesn't have the, like, you know what I mean? Like the whole time comes around and she just can't, you know what I mean? She doesn't have the ability to withhold herself.
She breaks it.
No, she breaks her fast. And what does she do then? She makes it up later. So basically this individual, they would be obligated to, at the least, what are they obligated to do? Not even before that. They're obligated to have intention every single day, right? This is the minimum requirement, that I'm obligated to intend to fast every single day, even if I don't have the physical ability to actually do that and fulfill it. And if I can't, I make it up at a later date. So the expiation, this is the biggest one, right? This is the one that is the most problematic. If an individual has intercourse with his wife during the day of Ramadan, what is he obligated to do now? So that's one of them. So basically, if an individual, there are 2 cases now. There are 2 scenarios. You have somebody who's exempted. If you have a traveler, somebody who's traveling with his wife in Ramadan, they have a choice to not fast. Can they have intercourse?
Yes. Well, if someone wanted to really do it, they would just sit and go out of town.
We'll talk about some unique cases. So do they have, in the madhāhib, they actually can't.
Oh, they can't.
Yeah.
In Ḥanbali.
Yeah, in the Ḥanbali madhāhib, they can't. They actually can't have intercourse, even though they're not fasting, even though they're excused. So all they have to, what they have to do is they have to make up that fast. You understand? There's no penalty, right? There's no penalty. The only thing that they actually have to do is make up the fast. That's it.
So the traveler or
The traveler. So this is the one who's traveler, the one who's temporarily ill, you know, I mean, whatever the, you know, all of those exceptional categories. If a person has an intercourse and they're from the exempted categories, all they have to do is make up the fast.
So the niyyah would be making up this fast.
Yes. For having intercourse in the day during Ramadan. Because even eating during the day for like the people who are exempted, it's something that it's makruh, it's considered makruh. So if an individual is not from the exempted category, if he's not from the exempted category, the first thing he has to do, he has to free a slave. If I don't have a slave, I have to fast 2 consecutive months. What does that mean? That I fast now all of, well, I can't fast all of Shawwal, right? Because why can't I fast all of Shawwal?
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
The entirety of Shawwal, I can't fast it. It's haram. Why? Because the first of Shawwal is Eid,
Yeah,
and it's haram to fast on Eid. So I would have to start fasting from the 2nd of Shawwal until the 2nd of Dhul Qa'dah, right? So I'd fast until the 2nd of Dhul Qa'dah, and then from the 2nd of Dhul Qa'dah until the 2nd of Dhul Hijjah. Tayyib, on the 1st of Dhul Hijjah,
You start again.
on the 1st of Dhul Hijjah, I went to my wife while I'm fasting the 2 consecutive months. What happens? Start over again. Start from the beginning. If an individual doesn't have the ability to do this, he has to feed 60 poor people. Hey, what if I don't even have the ability to do that? There's nothing you do. Just go home. You just make tawbah, you go home, and that's it. There's nothing you can do. And all of this is based on the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where a man came to him and he's like, I'm destroyed. I'm done. It's over. The Prophet said, what happened? He's like, I went to my wife during the day. So the Prophet said, okay, why don't you free a slave? What did he say? He's like, I don't have a slave. He's like, okay, then fast 2 consecutive months. What did he say to that one? Like, I couldn't fast one day. I couldn't fast one day, and you want me to fast for 2 consecutive months. And then the Prophet said to him, what? He said, fast. He said, feed 60 people. He said, listen, but you see these 2. First obligated is that if you had to fast the entire day and then you break your fast at Maghrib, and then if you went to sleep, that's it. That you are not allowed to eat again. So the moment you went to sleep, you're not allowed to go to your wife again. So then what happened was that there was a man who fell asleep, and he woke up and he went to his wife, and his wife was like, she was like, yo, dude, you were just sleeping. I heard you snoring. And he's like, no, I wasn't sleeping. So he went to his wife, and then they went to then the woman, she went to the Prophet. I'm like, hey, this is what happened. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then revealed the verse that it's okay for you to go to your wives at night, meaning that you have that entire window instead of waiting for the window of when you fall asleep, right? Which is a smaller window. You can actually go the entire time. So from Maghrib until Fajr, you have that entire time to eat, sleep, and be intimate. So what like I said, what was happening before when the fasting was initially obligated was that you only had from Maghrib until you went to sleep. And if you went to sleep, that's it. Even if you took a nap. Like that's it. Yeah. So that's why that verse was actually revealed. Is that clear? Yeah.
Ultimate in the end, they just finished
Yeah. So then.
got the.
Yeah. So then going back to the original story, basically the Prophet ﷺ, this man was sitting and waiting for the ruling to figure out what would happen, and then the Prophet ﷺ said, like he waited, and then somebody came and donated dates, and the Prophet ﷺ said, okay, here, give these dates out to the poor people. And what did he say?
Most deserving.
Right, like my family's more deserving of this. So what? Not only did he go to his wife during the day of Ramadan, he ended up taking food back for his family as the eventual punishment. So someone might be like, okay, how do we kind of reconcile this situation? What are some things that we can actually benefit from the story? And how do we know what this person was feeling, what this individual was feeling? Huh? He was feeling a lot of regret. And ultimately, the purpose of all of these different types of kafarat, right? All of these different types of expiation is to remove what? Is to remove the sin, right? To remove the effects of the sin on the person. The first step of removing the sin is what? Is remorse, right? Remorse is the most important thing. And not just that, not only was it remorse, he sat there the whole time with the Prophet ﷺ waiting for some kind of solution, waiting for an answer. It's not like the Prophet ﷺ said, okay, can you do this, and he's like, no, sorry, dude, I can't do that. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, okay, well, we need to figure something out. He wasn't like, okay, just call for me. When you get some revelation, he sat and he waited, right? Because he was eager to make kafara, to make tawbah for this, for this sin that he had actually fallen into.
I always wondered about this situation. If someone wanted to break his fast this way, but just drink water, the intention is different, but absolutely. So what if somebody intentionally broke their fast and then went? And this is one of the reasons that you have the fuqaha talk about these people who, even the people who are exempted, they're not allowed to be intimate. So you're not allowed?
So remember we had talked about the people who are exempted. We said that if we have a husband and wife who are traveling, can they be intimate? You guys were like, yeah, it's normal. The fuqaha say no. Why?
In general, all
Yeah.
Oh my God.
As far as I remember, I'll go back and double check. But why do they say no?
Out of respect for Ramadan.
Out of respect for Ramadan, there's no doubt about that. So, but people don't utilize this loophole. What you were talking about. Meaning that, okay, well, I want to go to my wife, but I don't want to pay those penalties. So I grab an apple and I break my fast, right? Then I would go to my wife. There's a loophole that's there. No, because you went to your wife during the day of Ramadan, you still have to follow these. Because ultimately, doing all those things, yeah, that's fine, but you still went to your wife, even though you weren't exempted. Now, an individual who is exempted, and in essence, he's what? He's allowed to do all this. If I can eat and drink while I'm traveling, or if I can eat and drink while I'm ill, why would it make a difference if I was traveling or if I was not, right? So these things are important to keep in mind.
What giving 6 people 1 day each would be fine, or like?
No, we had said that you actually have to give a meal, right? You have to actually give a meal. Hey, what if he has intercourse before expiation? Ramadan isn't over yet. So the 15th of Ramadan, he went to his wife during the day, and then the 28th of Ramadan comes, and he went to his wife. Just keep disconnecting. So we had talked about this before. We had said, okay, when is it an obligation to fast? So for example, if I'm traveling at Dhuhr time, if I know I'm going to travel at Dhuhr time, am I obligated to fast? Or can I choose not to fast because I know I'm traveling?
We were talking about this.
Yeah, this is what we spoke. We did speak about this last week.
It's like if you start your day out fasting,
Uh,
then you should finish.
then you're obligated to complete it. If I don't start my day fasting,
Then you're exempt.
and I'm exempt, then I'm allowed to continue using that exemption. So a traveler who comes home before Maghrib, an individual who comes home before Maghrib, the woman who comes out of her period after Fajr, and if they perform intercourse, they must pay the kafara. We had said this. Right? These are very exceptional cases. So if there's an individual who's traveling and he travels, right, he's leaving, he comes home at Asr time. Is it okay for him to go to his wife? And this is what we had talked about, utilizing that loophole. And this is why the fuqaha want to close that loophole. So people don't use this. Like, so for example, we said traveling is like 50 miles in the madhāhib, right, generally. So what do? I go with my wife to a hotel, 60 miles away. Right? It's a reasonable way to, they would say that this individual still must pay the kafara. Who pays the kafara, the man or the woman?
Oh, it depends on who
Who initiated?
had a lot of willingness. If the woman, for example, didn't want to participate, but he made her too,
so-
she is exempt.
So what if she takes advantage of the situation?
Then she should, must, as far as
It's
it,
in her-
What if she initiates?
or she must.
She pays the kafara?
And he said, no, I can't.
Uh,
So he probably is exempted.
They
they
both pay.
both pay it? So here, what's interesting is going back to the hadith of the Prophet with the man. Did he call for the family?
No, just a one.
No, he just said the man was there and that was enough for him. And he said that, who did he say has to pay?
He-
Yeah, he said him. Like, he's like, you have to pay. So in general, I think that it applies to men because like where's the other place the penalty applies? In what other situation? Outside of Ramadan, outside of fasting. Having intercourse when your wife is on her cycle. As well. Is something wrong with this? What if I die before I make up my fasts? The family makes it up. All right, if the excuse was valid, nothing is required. You know, if I pass away and I was unable to make up my fasts, and I had valid excuse at the time, you know, either I was ill, I was delayed, or, you know, whatever reason, because when am I obligated to make up my fast? Ramadan ends, and now I'm in the 2nd of Shawwal. I've missed 5 fasts. When am I obligated to make up these fasts? So if I delay it, like,
Oh, as soon as you can.
okay, if we say as soon as I can, meaning that I start racking up sins when?
When the next Ramadan comes.
If I delay it unnecessarily until the next Ramadan, for sure, which is why we pay an additional penalty. But if I choose to delay it until Muharram, Is there a problem with that? No, I have the choice. Like I have the agency to delay my fast by choice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me a window, right? He's given me a window until the next of Ramadan. And we have specifically a hadith from Aisha radiallahu anha. When did she used to make up her fasts? And no, she says herself, I used to make them up in Sha'ban. When is Sha'ban? I mean, it's a lunar calendar, so there are no short and long days. When is Sha'ban? It's right before Ramadan. It's the month before Ramadan. Yeah, meaning what? She delayed them the entire year and made them up before Ramadan started. If my excuse is invalid, I don't have a valid excuse to make up those fasts, and I pass away. At this point, then a poor person should be paid for every day that the individual didn't fast. And where should the money come from? For his money from his estate. Before the estate is distributed and divided. For a vowed fast or deed, then someone should fast on his behalf. This is different from the Ramadan fasts. Dave, how come I can't just pay for this one? If I did nadhar, if I promised to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala I was going to fast. Right? There's no kafara for this, right? There's no specific hadith for a vowed fast. Why? Because it's a voluntary promise that I made to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala versus an obligation that Allah placed on me. This is an obligation that I placed on myself, right? This is not something that Allah placed on me, which is why we deal with it like that. The things that invalidate the fast. There are a number of categories. Here are the 6 major categories, and most of the things that we'll talk about are going to fall under this. Eating, drinking, or taking anything through the nostrils or through other orifices, right? So the nostrils and the mouth are not the only place that we can actually put things into our body, right? There are other ways that we can put things into our body. Intentionally vomits, masturbation, ejaculates due to stimulation, and hijama, right? These are the 6 things in the madhāhib. This
for them, or do they have to make up?
No, they would still, because the thing, they're forced at that point. They would continue fasting. It's just like the person who forgets.
Okay.
Right? So if I forget that I was fasting, what do I do at that point?
You just keep going. You stop immediately once you remember.
Right. So the moment I remember, I stop eating. But what do? Is my fast over?
No.
No, I keep fasting until Maghrib comes in. It's the same thing, right? So if a person is forced in those situations, the times that he or she is forced, what do? They do it, right? If they eat or drink or whatever it is that they're forced to do. And outside of that time, their intention should be what?
Fasting.
That I'm fasting. That, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala aid them. So food, this includes nutritional items, also includes sexual intercourse, and it also includes non-food items. And this is by ijma', meaning that can I eat pebble while I'm fasting? If I eat the pebble, what happens to my fast? Purposely. I break my fast. This is something that actually breaks my fast. This is by ijma'. This is by consensus. It's just considered under the same type of category. I don't know. It's either putting it here or putting it with masturbation. It's basically like these are the main things, right? So when we think of fasting, we usually think of 3 things, right? We think of food, we think of drink, and we think of intercourse, right? These are the 3 things. So that's why these are the 3 main things that break the fast. through other orifices. There are a number now that we're going to talk about a lot. Most of these are medically related. Most of these are medically related. So for example, injections. What do you guys think? If I take an injection, is my fast valid or not?
Vaccination is a different thing.
I don't know. You tell me. What's different about a vaccine? Huh? They can make you sick. Can turn you into zombies. Huh.
So the more than, so it should happen.
Sure. There are two types of injections, right?
Yeah, so nutritional and non-nutritional.
Good. So you have nutritional and you have those which are not. So for example, can I get a drip, an IV drip? Like this, an injection. Can I get an IV drip?
Sugar.
It's nutritional, right? So there's sugars and salts that are in it. So that's nutritional. That would actually break my fast. Enemas. Enemas are usually put in, enemas are always put in from behind. These, we'll talk about them. Vaginal. According to the Malikis and the Ḥanbalis, the fast is actually still valid. Sublingual is like, it's basically something that dissolves and it's absorbed by underneath the tongue. You put it underneath the tongue. Inhalers, which many people take, nasal drops, eye drops, ear drops, right? These are all different drops that we all take and we can put in different places. Endoscopes is, again, endoscopes can be from both ends, right? It can be from the mouth or it can be from the rear end, usually to check the health of the intestine or to check, if there's something lodged in the throat or in the breathing cavity. And skin preparation. So sometimes there are things that are absorbed via the skin. Do these things break fast? Out of all of these things, there are only two, right? So if it's a nutritional injection, this breaks fast, and many of the majami' fiqhiyah, many of the fiqh councils have said they do. Nasal drops, there's a difference of opinion over. Nasal drops, there's a difference of opinion. Yes.
Does drawing blood have the same effect as
When we get to hijama, we'll talk about that, inshallah. So nasal drops, there's a difference of opinion over. Basically, what do all of these things revolve around, and what is the reasoning? Why have this reasoning? Why is it that those apply to that? It has to do with anatomy. If I put an eardrop, where does the eardrop go? Huh?
If you like a lot.
Even if I put a lot,
it stays in the ear?
it stays in the ear, right? There's the eardrum actually separates the two cavities, right? So you have space before the eardrum, which is the hearing cavity, and then you have space after the eardrum, which helps equalize the pressure. You guys like ever swallow, or like, you go up in a plane, or like when you're swimming, you feel the pressure. To equalize it, that's through the throat, but they're not actually connected. There's a membrane that separates it. All right, so nothing actually reaches the throat. That's one thing. The other thing, eyes actually, they drain into, like, when you guys are like, when we cry, we also get a what? We also get a runny nose, right? Because the tears actually drain into the nose, which is why eye drops are considered okay. Nose drops. Why do you think there's a difference of opinion on nose drops? Right, because the nose, the cavity is actually fully connected, like right here. Right? Going here, it can go straight into your throat. How come inhalers are more accepted? Because even inhalers, honestly, there is a khilaf.
Well, that's cigarettes, that's stealing, but that.
Like cigarettes would be along the same lines, but okay, but why would cigarettes or inhalers? We'll talk about some. I want to talk about drugs after this, but I want to talk about inhalers first. Right, inhalers, ideally, right, if it's taken properly, it should go into the trachea, right? It should go into the lungs. But does all of it go into the lungs? No, some of it actually makes its way into the esophagus, into the digestive tract, which is why many scholars find it problematic. What other drops were there? Nose, eye, ear. I think that's it. Right, those are all the different ones. So what is the common theme that we see here from all of these different drops? The sublingual doesn't actually, okay.
Yeah, meaning just
sure.
In the same area or.
But even the sublingual, it basically what happens is you keep it under your tongue, and where does it go? Does it go here? No, it actually gets absorbed here. There's just a number of vessels here that are close to the surface, which is why it's a way of taking medicine. So again, what is the common theme? What are we seeing here? What is the dhabit, or what is the major rule that a number of scholars are looking at to determine if this validates or invalidates the fast? If it goes to the stomach. basically. Remember how we had talked about stones and saying if a person purposely eats a stone, if it breaks his fast, medicines, the same thing applies. Okay, but how come injections are okay? Non-nutritional ones, forget nutritional. Nutritional, we agree to that, they're not. Why are non-nutritional injections are okay? Even though we said that taking stone, like eating a stone or eating a pebble is not permissible. It would break your fast.
By form or by?
Because of the way that it's being done, right? It's because of the way. And that's actually a very good way to summarize it, either in form or in meaning. So if it's taking the place of food, even though it's coming in a way that we normally don't take food, that would make it something that breaks the fast. But the form is different in many times. So when we take something subcutaneously, so let me ask something else, like a nicotine patch. Does that break the fast? Actually, it doesn't. What if I take drugs? Question.
Through the what? The patch? The patch? Or is that? What's that?
It's not that.
It's crack.
Non-nutritional.
Crack. It's not nutritional.
Right, the stuff that makes your eye alleviates pain.
Like opiates, right? Smoking, why does smoking break your fast or no?
Yes.
It does, why? It's like, so the tar and like, you know, the tobacco and stuff, it doesn't just go into the lungs, it actually also enters the stomach. The Kutub al-Sitta, they never claim Sihha. The 6 books are what? Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, and Ibn Majah. Right, Ibn Majah. And this six canon, it actually was made relatively famous later on by Ibn Qudama. Right, when he wrote Al-Kamal fi Asma' al-Rijal, and that's where these 6 became canon. But these are 6 books of hadith. I'm talking about those scholars that made it a condition that the hadith that we have in our books are sahih. There are 2 that you guys, everybody should know. Bukhari and Muslim, right? That's 2. There are 4 more historically. 4 more. Mashallah. This is, that's cheating, right? So Ibn Khuzaymah, Ibn Hibban, good. So there are 2 left. There's a scholar that came after them. His name is Hakim. He has a book called Mustadrak. Mustadrak ala Sahihain. And then you have 1 more that came even after them. He died around like 623 or so. No, Tabarani, he never declared his. That's another unique work. You have a book called Hadith al-Mukhtar by Al-Diya al-Maqdisi. So those, if anybody asks, you know, what are the 6 Sahih books? I know, right? I just had to throw it in there, flex a little bit. Masturbation. What do you guys think? Right, it's an invalidator, and this is something that is agreed upon by all the madhāhib except the what? The Zahiris. Why do you guys think the literalists don't think it to be a muftar, that it doesn't break fast? Okay, they said it's not intercourse, and also not necessarily, well, ejaculation. Like, okay, they're like, okay, well, if you have a wet dream while you're fasting, what do? You continue fasting. Because there's no clear text. right? There's no verse, there's no hadith to indicate that it actually is. But a lot of it is based on qiyas, right? So the thing is you have with the Zahiris is that to found the base ruling, they will never use analogy, right? To found a ruling, they will never use analogy, which is why they considered it to not invalidate the fast.
So,
You have some like modern opinions that are kind of even stranger than this. They say masturbation is okay, but ejaculation invalidates.
That was
Yeah.
my question.
Yeah,
It's
that's regardless. Yeah,
friction,
yeah, exactly. Regardless if you climax or not, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
I thought a wet dream doesn't invalidate.
It doesn't.
Okay.
But a wet dream, is that something that you stimulate?
No.
No, right? That's something that's natural.
So enjoy.
So ejaculates or produces pre-seminal fluid due to stimulation. Now, this is outside stimulation, whether it be kissing or touching, your wife or your husband, right? And then this onsets. So the majority view the fast to be invalid the moment that an individual ejaculates or even produces pre-seminal fluid, which is madhi, except for the Shafi'is. The Shafi'is, they say, many is agreed on, right? This is all scholars. Like if a person climaxes, this is agreed on. But madhi, they would say that it's not. Look. So just here, so according to the Shafis, if an individual just produces pre-seminal fluid, and this is before actually reaching climax and before discharging, then the fast is still valid, right? It's not, it doesn't invalidate it. So hijama, you would have basically three categories of things, right? So you have the actual hijama or bloodletting. These are two different medical treatments that were very common during the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it's something that was even common in the Western world. Not hijama, but bloodletting was common until I think about like the 1800s or so. Basically, they would say, oh, if you are ill, then you have to lose some blood because the blood is bad. So they like sometimes people would just bleed out and die. Yeah, like bleed out, you know what I mean? So it would happen, unfortunately. And then you have blood donation and blood tests. These are things that are more common, things that are more regular that happen. You have a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, "Aftar al-hajm wal-mahjum," that the individual who is performing the hijama and the person who it's being performed on, both of these individuals have invalidated their fast. You have a number of companions that actually say this hadith is abrogated. Which is why you don't have most of the madhāhib acting on it. It's only the Ḥanbalis who act on this and say that it is something that invalidates. Some supporting reasons for it is because an individual actually gets weak when they lose some blood. The one who performs it, how it used to be done is you would suck into the thing. Now it's done with a pump. It was also done with flame, so it would remove the oxygen from it. I don't know if anybody's had the hijama done. Okay. Many companions, again, they consider it abrogated. And lastly, it is not an invalidator. Ibn Abbas, he narrates that the Prophet ﷺ actually had hijama done while he was fasting. So again, the majority, they view it to not be something that invalidates fast. It's only the Ḥanbalis that see that. Blood donation. Your stance on this determines your stance on this, very simply. So if I see hijama to be a muftir, I would also see blood donation to be something that invalidates the fast as well. A blood test, I think there's more lenience even with the Ḥanbalis concerning this because it's just a small amount of blood, right? It's not a large amount of blood and it's not meant to be for medicinal purposes. It's meant to be usually for examination. Does that answer your questions on blood? Okay. Because there are some more exceptions, inshallah, that we'll talk about next week. In the meantime, I'll take questions and then we'll get ready for Salah, inshallah. Yes.
Are there more than 70 major sins?
70 what? Major sins? You have a number of scholars historically that have tried to write down what the major sins are. If you look at a lot of the earlier works, most of them only mention like 6 or 7. You don't even have that many that are talked about. And as time went on, that list kind of got longer and longer and longer. And then a lot of it is ijtihad. And not just that, when it comes to like the order of those sins, it's like, okay, how do you determine what is more sinful? Some people, they'll say, okay, well, it based on the punishment that a person receives, that according to that would be the more sinful sin. So based on that logic, the most sinful sin after shirk would be what? It would be zina. But what we know about riba, is riba worse or zina? Riba. Okay, what about being disrespectful and disobedient to your parents? You understand where the problem comes in? Using that as a gauge, using that as a gauge is really problematic. Saying that based on the punishment in this world, this is how bad that sin is. A sodomy is another problem, right? It's another issue. A lot of people, they like moving that up or down on this list accordingly. And I understand, I get it. It is a kabira, right? It's a major sin. But the question then comes in, does my personal disgust of something allow me to move something up and down on the scale of how bad something is, right? That's not a gauge. I can't use my personal disgust as a gauge. And this can be for any sin. I dislike alcohol, right? As a substance. Can I allow that disgust to move up, make me move that up on the list?
Is that what they use as a-
Yeah, a lot of people do. So for them, if you ask anyone about, okay, what's the worst sin? La shirk, right? There's no doubt about that. After that, what is it? Sodomy, like homosexuality. That's the number one after. It's like, really? Yeah.
Some even put that. I have a friend who.
Yeah. So some people will put it like, they're like, no, it's shirk, sodomy, same thing. Like, it's like, no, bro, it's not how it works. I'm not saying it's right. Like, it is a major sin. And not just that, it's like, okay, well, there are other sins too. What if a person doesn't pray? Doesn't fast, doesn't give zakat, doesn't make hajj? All of these are all major sins. Like, they're all major sins. What gives me the right to put numbers next to them that Allah hasn't placed? Right? It's really problematic. And I'm doing taqawwul on Allah. Like, I'm claiming Allah is putting this level behind these sins. It's much safer to say these are all major sins and they're all evil. And I had a brother actually approach me, and I told him, I was like, okay, if my kid was committing a sin, would I rather him perform zina or, sodomy? And he was like, zina. I was like, no, bro, neither. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, it's not, like, they're all kabira. They're all qabiha. They're all disgusting. And we should treat them as such. It's not like, oh, okay, hey, well, if I could choose this sin, no, choose no sin. Like, that's the choice. That's what we should do. The Prophet ﷺ said, whatever I've ordered to do it to the best of your ability. And what I've prohibited you from, stay away from it. So, may Allah protect us and our children.
There's hadith about 7 deadly sins, right?
Wallahu, I mean, you have a lot of hadith that talk about a lot of the different kabair, right? That talk about, and the problem is, like, the number one, the authenticity of a lot of those hadith, and then like the ordering behind them. It's just like,
But we can use the 70 minutes as like this is like, oh, this repent is a major sin. We can use it like okay, I know what a major sin.
So I mean, here, let me put it this way: what are some things that we all agree on that we know? We know, like, uquq walidain. I don't want to say disrespect. I would say disrespect is a better way instead of disobey. But because am I going to listen to everything my parents tell me to do? No, right? So disrespect, I think, is a good one. Usury, definitely riba is up there. Sodomy, drinking alcohol, zina, right? Murder, lying, cheating, backbiting. Like, these are all sins that we all know, like, as fitri. Like, these are things that we understand and we know that have to be avoided in our major sins. And I'm not saying it's necessarily a problem, but putting a number next to it, or like, okay, no, these are the 70. All right, so like number 71 is outside of that circle, so that one's okay. But these major ones we all know and we understand, and we should definitely stay away from. Backbiting, slandering, and the thing is, many times we overlook the fact that they're all in the same category. Like, these are all major sins.
Like the same thing happened basically with the types of shit that we have as well.
Yeah.
Like this one's like,
Mhm. So that's a little bit different when you start categorizing shirk, because shirk, there's either sharing partners with Allah or doing something to show off. What is the consequence of both? Making shirk with Allah, what happens? Right, I was outside the fold of Islam, and doing things to show off for people, what happens? Right, my action is destroyed, but the person is still right. He's still Muslim. So with shirk, that can work, but you don't have like 50 levels of shirk. Maybe in the sense, like, okay, who's the worst mushrik, like a Hindu or a Christian? Maybe in that sense, that can work. But even then, it's like, I mean, shirk is shirk. Any other questions?
My question on
Sure.
Tahara and being and having touching one spot with loss.
Uh-huh. So this is an issue of disagreement, for no doubt. So touching the private area with lust, this is what some scholars would say, this is what actually invalidates wudu, versus touching it. You know, for example, taking a shower, right? Are you coming out of the shower, drying yourself? They say there's no lust there, and your wudu would actually still be valid. Yeah. No, I mean, there's a lot of there's like a lot of stuff that breaks wudu apparently. It's like shaking my wife's hand breaks my wudu. It breaks both of our breaks both of our wudus. So like I make her walk around with gloves.
That's why Ḥanbali's preference.
Is it easier?
Let's go back to Ḥanbali.
Is there class after this?
So unfortunately, I thought somebody else was coming in, but we won't be having class today. We can have a short discussion if you like, but there's no class today. I don't have any. Yeah, I don't have. I thought he confirmed, and he was like, "No, I didn't confirm." I was like, "Okay," but no, that's good today. We'll continue. We'll pick it up from next week. Any other questions? No. All right. جزاكم الله خير. والله أعلم وصلى الله على خير خلق نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك وأشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.